Alright guys, welcome to the channel, and if you clicked on this video to figure out how to swap a 94 to 04 V6 Mustang over to any V8 that comes in these Mustangs, you clicked on the right video, because behind me I have my 2000 base model Mustang V6 body with a Lincoln Mark 8 swap motor in it, and it's pretty much the same process for almost every V8 you want to swap into this vehicle. And today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to go from V6 to V8 in a very small amount of steps. So let's get into today's video. Alright, so before we even get started in what you actually need or how to do the swap, I'm just going to give you a visual walk around of this 2000 base model Mustang. And if you know anything about Mustangs, you can visually see that this is the V6 model. I don't want to put my serial number or the VIN number online, so I'm sure you can visually see that this is the V6 model. If you're wondering why it looks lowered, that's because I have it on cut springs. I took the stock springs out and cut a few coils off of them to bring the vehicle down. And this here would be the proof of my Lincoln Mark 8 swap. This is a Gen 1 motor that I have in here. And now I'm gonna run you through the process of swapping any V8 into a V6 Mustang any year from 94 to 04. Alright, so for starters, the first thing that we're going to talk about is what you should be concerned about whenever you're going to do any type of engine swap, and you know that you want to figure out whether it's you're going from the 3.8 V6 over to the single overhead cam, the normal V8 motor, which is fine, that's called the 2-valve motor. Behind me I have a 4-valve motor in here. There are slightly small differences in between the two swaps, but not much that you can't choose between one of the two. To mount any V8, which is the 4.6 single overhead cam, the 4.6 dual overhead cam, or even if you want to do a 5.0 swap, you're going to need the proper motor mounts for that year. 95 I believe to 96 had the 5.0, which called the SN95, and then further on they had the 4.6. The Cobras and the Mark 1s had the dual overhead cam motor, like what I have behind me, the all aluminum. But if you want to mount a 5.0 inside of your V6 body, all you need is to buy yourself a set of engine mounts from a 95 or 96 year. Same thing for the 4.6. If you want to put a 4.6 in your V6, you just buy yourself a set of 4.6 mounts for the SN95 or for the New Edge, which is pretty much the same thing. I've seen a lot of people on the forums talk about having to change your K member to swap a 4.6 in it. I've never had that issue. I actually swapped a 5.0 into a V6, and I have a playlist about that. And I swapped a dual overhead cam 4.6 into a V6 body and never had to change that K member. So not sure where that rumor is coming from, but I've never had to do it. I just bought myself a set of 4.6 engine mounts, and you can reuse the factory trans mount when swapping from V6 to V8. It's the same trans mount, bolts up the same way, and when you're going from V6 to V8, no, you cannot reuse that gearbox. So keep that in mind. You're going to need either a T45 from a 4.6 or a TR3650 from a 4.6. If you're going with the 5.0 swap, yes, you can reuse the gearbox, but it's not as strong as if you got a 5.0 gearbox. So we covered mounts. You're going to need mounts when swapping any V8 that is created by Ford into this Mustang. Now we can go further on to wire harness. Alright, so now that we've already talked about how to mount these engines inside a V6 body, now we're going to talk about wire harness, because this is where it gets a bit tricky or pricey if you don't have the donor car option, which is going to a junkyard and actually getting a donor vehicle that has been mashed and has everything in it. You're going to need a complete V8 wire harness. You're going to need a complete V8 computer, no damage, and they should be plug and play, where you can unbolt the engine harness from the, I think it's a fuse block by the battery box, and you can bolt right harness. I'm not quite sure about that because I actually ran a standalone harness in here, which is a Ron Francis harness, which is a very good kit, and that can run 2 valve or 4 valve applications. So you're gonna need a new wire harness, you're gonna need a new computer if you're gonna do the 4.6 swap. Now, when I did the 5.0 swap inside of a V6 body, all I did is carburet the 5.0, 1 wire for the fuel pump, 1 wire for the starter, 1 wire for distributor, and I was good to go. So I didn't need any new harnesses. But yes, you're gonna need a new wire harness when doing this swap. And if you want it done right, yes, you're gonna need a standalone harness, but you can reuse factory harnesses. I just believe that you're gonna need the engine harness and you're gonna need the dash harness, but I'm not quite sure about that because I've never done the engine and dash harness swap. So we've already covered mounts, we've covered wire harness, now we're gonna cover fueling. All right, so like I said, this is my Gen 1 Lincoln Mark 8 swap V6 2000 Mustang. I have an adjustable fuel pressure regulator right here, and what I had to do when I swapped this motor in, because this is actually a return style fuel rail, you'll have to figure out what motor you're gonna run and if your car was either returnless or return style, because your fuel pump hat is gonna have 2 nozzles coming off of it. One is going to be the feed engine, one is going to be the return. But if your vehicle was returnless, you're going to have 1 line going to the engine. And if your vehicle was returnless and your engine is a return style, you're going to have to get the I think it's 97 to 98 Mustang GT fuel hat. It comes with the 2 nozzles, so you can run a feed and a return. Also, I would recommend when you go from V6 to V8 that you change your fuel pump. Obviously, you're going to need, I believe it's around the same fuel pressure, which is 39 to 40 pounds. And you're going to need, probably want to upsize the pump, because I'm not sure if the V6 and the V8 pump are the same. I highly doubt it because they push different horsepower ratings, and you know that pumps are rated by the liters that they can push, but you know they are limited to the horsepower based on how much they push. So yeah, that's basically what I did for fueling when swapping. Also, if you're gonna do the dual overhead cam swap like I did, which was the 4.6, you're gonna have to repin the coil on plug harness that's underneath here, but that's a completely different topic. So we've covered mounts, we've covered wire harness, we've covered fueling. Now we're going to cover drivetrain and we should be done. Alright, so like I said, we covered basically everything to get the motor mounted in your vehicle, started with a wire harness, started with a fuel pump setup, and now we're going to talk about drivetrain. And the reason why I separated this from any other category is because the drivetrains on these Mustangs are not the best from factory. The T45 is not the best. The TR3650 is pretty much the same, just a little better. And the T5 that comes with the V6 and the 5.0s are pretty much the same. We didn't have a lot of great options when it came to Mustangs. Personally, with my box, this is my 2nd box since I've had this vehicle. And first to second is notchy at best. You can't really speed shift it. Second to third is notchy at best. You know, it's hard to get into gear. Going from third to fourth pretty much grinds and makes a lot of noise, but it goes in. So you're gonna need the proper flywheel, the proper starter, and the proper drive shaft for your swap. That's what we're gonna talk about. If you're gonna use the T5 that comes off of the V6, you're still gonna need a 5.0 T5 flywheel to match your starter. I'm not gonna get too deep into that because you'll have to do your own research if that's what you're planning on doing. But yes, you're gonna need a flywheel that matches the starter. You're also gonna need a clutch kit for the 5.0. You're also going to need a drive shaft for the T5. The T5 comes factory with all V6s and factory with all 5.0s. So you're gonna need a T5 gearbox, a 5.0 flywheel, and a 5.0 clutch kit and a 5.0 starter. So that piece of it is going to be relatively pricey because you're gonna have to outsource all those parts. But like I said, this all goes back to if you can get a donor car, it'd be much cheaper on you to do that swap. So Yes, so that covers the 5.0 part of it. You're going to need the T5 from your V6, which is very good. You don't have to buy a gearbox, but you're also going to have to buy a flywheel, starter, and a clutch kit. Also, I believe the factory drive shaft should work because obviously it's a T5. But if you're working off of a vehicle like this one, where I built it from the ground up and got it as a roll-in chassis, then you're going to have to outsource all these things and buy them yourself. If you're going to use if you're going to go from the 3.8 to the 4.6, any version of the 4.6, whether it's a dual overhead cam or single, you're going to either need a T45 or a TR3650, and they go for around $600 to $900, so they can be pricey as well. You're going to need a 4.6 flywheel, whether it's 6 bolt or 8 bolt, depends on the motor you get, what year you get. You're going to need a starter for that 4.6, hopefully it comes with the engine, and a clutch kit, hopefully that all these things come with the engine. Like I said, buying a donor car or getting a full setup out of a car that's smashed is usually ideal when doing these swaps, because if you buy these things piece, you're going to really run into a lot of expenses. Also, if you do the 4.6 swap into a V6 body, like I said, you just need the mounts and the engine mounts, and you can drop it in. The trans mount from the V6 will work with any of the T5, T45, or TR3650, so you don't need to outsource a trans mount, but you will need to buy a drive shaft for your T45 or TR3650. I believe those two use the same drive shaft, but a T5 uses a different drive shaft. So that's pretty much it. We've covered how to mount it in the car, we've covered the wire harness and how to get it running, we've covered the fueling and how to get fuel to the motor and back to the tank if need be. We've covered the transmission. All right, so one thing I forgot to mention was that when you're going from V6 to 4.6, no matter if it's the dual overhead cam version or the 2-valve version, which is a single overhead cam, you're going to need the V8 hydro boost. You're also going to need the power steering pump for a 2-valve or a 4-valve, and all the lines that go with it, the reservoir that goes with it, because your the V6 air booster that is for your brakes will not fit with these engines. If you look, even with the hydro boost, it's extremely close. So when going from V6 to 4.6, you always need the V8 hydro boost, but when going from V6 to 5.0, you can actually use the air booster that comes with the V6. And you should be good to go. The swap isn't very hard. I've done it in my backyard and had a lot of good results, and hopefully you guys can get the same. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this information was of any use to you, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.